Oh, hello, friends. I'm coming to you live from the literal lake. If you are watching on Instagram right now, you're so welcome for this view. You're so welcome, Instagram. It's good times over there on Instagram. Oh, yeah, my setup right now is interesting. Oh. Anyway, it is what it is. It is what it is, because I am at the literal lake. I am up north I am up north in Ontario, so that's where I'm coming to you live from. It's good times, good times. So here we are. This is my second last day of vacation. I have to go home tomorrow, but I thought that what I would do is jump on. Doesn't everybody say that? I'm like, and then I just jump on. And yeah. Okay, I'm just jumping on. My name is Dr. Shannon Coates. I am what am I? Oh, singer, performer, and educator, and pedagogy maximizer. And I am, as I said, coming to you live from a place in northern-ish, it's actually more central, but anyway, northern-ish Ontario, on an island called Manitoulin Island. And that's where I am. Okay. Here is why I am here. Because, as you likely know, I develop resources for independent voice teachers in particular. I do work with academic voice teachers, especially folks who teach voice pedagogy in an academic setting, but I work with independent voice teachers in particular. And the work that I do involves creating classes and resources for independent voice teachers in particular. And the independent voice teachers, I have a couple of upcoming classes that are child voice, adolescent voice, aging voice, and they start this coming Wednesday, the 14th. Let's go 14th of August. And that series of classes, as I said, is pretty specific for independent voice teachers. We're going to be talking about some of the anatomy and physiology. We will talk a little bit about each of those stages of life. We will talk about like changing voice, what are we doing? What's happening? Appropriate expectations. We're going to talk about learning. We're going to talk about in child voice, how to support agency in learning with children, ways to understand motivation, etc. for when you're working with kids, as well as what's happening in the vocal instrument. We're gonna probably dispel some myths. So belting is not bad for children, or whatever you may. We'll talk about it. We'll probably get a little bit of a definition going for belting as well as talk about it. We'll talk about working with singers as they're going through voice transitions, how to support singers through voice transition. We're going to talk a little bit about supporting singers through voice transition, as well as supporting emotionally through voice transition, because that can be a challenging time. And then we're going to talk about aging voice in the aging voice class. So if you are someone who is interested in those things, please feel free to get on in there. All the information's on my website. There you can choose to pay in 2 installments as well, so that's there too. And all 3 of those classes, the replays as well as all the materials for those classes, will be available in the VoicePad 101 library as of the 2nd of September. I think I made it the 2nd because the 1st is a Sunday, so right. So the 2nd of September, and up until the 1st of September, you can get a lifetime subscription to the VoicePad 101 library, because I'm just like launching it. So anyway, okay, that's all that. Blah, blah, blah. What are we talking about today? We're talking about, I call this one Swimmin In It. And if you saw my recent post on this topic, you will understand kind of what I'm talking about. This is an analogy or a metaphor, whatever thing, My brain isn't quite here. My brain is really like, hey, when do I get to go on the lake again? That's where my brain is right now. It's okay. I'm with you. I'm with you enough. Also, my nieces and nephews, I have two nieces on this side of the family, and they both live. Well, keep it together, Shannon. Try to just keep it together. They both live very far away, and I do not get to see them that often. And so we are all up here. I also have three nephews, and they also live far away. But my one niece in particular is super into Taylor Swift, which good on you, girl. And so we have all of the friendship bracelet making paraphernalia, and she made this one for me. Shazam! And she said it reflected me, and I was like, yes, I feel like it does. Thank you so much. Look, it has like sparkly and pink and gold and vibrant and stars. Okay. Whew. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, we were talking about how I'm so distracted and I want to get back into the lake. But it's fine. Here I am, and I'll stay in it. I think my niece might be your best friend. Kelly Bar. Yes, I think she might be. I love it. The friendship bracelet like factory that we have going on my mom's coffee table right now. It is a whole thing. Whole thing. It's good times. So, hey, what are we talking about? Swimmin' in it. Here's what I'm talking about. So, part of the reason that, and if you have followed me for any length of time or have worked with me, etc., you will likely have some understanding of what I'm talking about anyway, so this may not be for you, but maybe it is. Maybe you'd like to hear it again. I don't know. Here is the thing. And this is one of the, this is going to be a particularly squirrely one. You are so welcome, all of you. So welcome. Particularly squirrely. Here's the thing. No, let me start here. Let me start on this one. So, when I went back to school and did my master's in voice pedagogy, and I did then my doctorate in voice pedagogy, well, performance specializing in voice pedagogy, right? Wonderful mentor, teacher, terrific program in many ways, and lots of wonderful stuff going on there. And because I had already been teaching in an independent studio, so I'd already had that sort of broader understanding of the kinds of singers and the kinds of goals and the kinds of blocks, if you will, the levels of coordination that singers bring into a typical independent voice studio. I had already been teaching in a typical independent voice studio, and I also taught in a music studio. So in a music studio, even more so, where you are the teacher, you basically teach whoever happens to come into the studio, pay their money, and walk through your door, right? So if you happen to be assigned to that singer, then you teach that singer. I mean, obviously, in lots of cases it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but in many music studios where we have a multi-teacher studio, especially when, as was in my case, when the owners of the studio or the main sort of musicians involved with the studio are not singers, we really just teach whoever's walking through the door, right? And so my understanding of a sort of typical singer, student, someone who I would be working with, the sort of typical client population, I had a very, I had lots of experience, and I had a very real understanding of what it meant and what it means to teach in that kind of environment, and what it means to teach in what I call now the generalist sense. So what it means to be a generalist as a voice teacher. So a typical independent voice teacher who is teaching just a broad range of singers with a broad range of goals, with a broad range of voices and a broad range of ages, etc. And I understood what that meant. I understood what it meant to be in. I also understood from experience what it meant to be responsible to parents and to people who are paying for their own voice lessons outside of a curriculum. So I understood what it meant to decide on goals that are outside of a curriculum and that are not dependent on like what it means to do this in an academic setting where we have 4 years to get through XYZ. Like I understood very much what it means to work in an independent environment, to be a true generalist, if you will. And so when I started to do my doctorate, or my master's and my doctorate, I had a lot of say. I was also a little bit older. So I had a lot of say, a lot of independent, I was able to sort of really think critically about the information, about the kind of modeling that was available, etc. I was able to think really critically about that information and about the way I was being trained and the assumptions behind the way I was being trained. And that is not to say that because I was able to think critically, I was also able to give really good feedback, right? And shout out to Lorna MacDonald, who was and is a dear friend and mentor, who runs the voice pedagogy program at the University of Toronto, where I did my master's, where I did all 3 of my degrees. I just like things to match, my matching degrees. Who was already on that path toward bringing in an understanding of what it means to be a generalist voice teacher, how to work with singers who are at lots of different levels, what expectations, and also who was very open to, conversations around what we're learning now is great and fabulous, and I'm really happy to learn how to teach and work with XYZ students, but I've never encountered that student in my actual independent voice studio. Like this student is not typical of who any of us who are doing our degree right now are likely to encounter in an independent voice studio. And so we want to maybe, we want to get some other information, like there are other things that we need. So wonderful. And then as I started to teach the undergraduate voice pedagogy program at the University of Toronto, I also taught at Laurier for a few years, which is another school in another university in Southern Ontario. Oh, hey, Laura. See, as I started to then become a little bit more engrossed in the academic world and, going to conferences and meeting other pedagogy teachers and being in like other pedagogy environments, it became very clear to me that I was one of a very few, if not in some cases, I was the only person in the room who had experience teaching in what I would call a typical independent voice studio, a generalist who was in fact a generalist voice teacher. In some cases, I was literally the only person in the room, the only teacher in the room who was teaching voice pedagogy at a university or in an academic setting, and who actually had the experience of being a generalist whose primary income source was being a generalist voice teacher in the room. And so there's a difference, right, between independent voice teacher and a generalist voice teacher, right? You can be an independent voice teacher and still be a specialist. There are lots of folks out there who are independent from an academic institution or from an institution or et cetera, et cetera. They're independent from academia or from an institution, but who are, and I should say and, because it doesn't negate anything, and who are also only working with professional music theater singers, for example, or who are only working with, high school advanced singers who only teach Western classical. Yeah, yes, we are. We're like GPs. Kelly, exactly that. We are like GPs. That is exactly like general practitioners, right? Yes, 100%. 100%. So this is the training. So like you can be, as I said, you can be an independent voice teacher and not be a generalist, not be a general practitioner, to my mind, right? You may have the information to be that you need to be a general practitioner. You may have done some training toward that, all of that, but you are not actually doing it in your real life. Again, in many cases, as I said, I was the only person in the room in lots of pedagogy, summits, etc., who had made their primary living over time as a generalist voice teacher. Oh, hi, Lizarino Hearns! And so that meant that in many cases I was bringing a very different perspective to the table in terms of what is necessary, needed, the assumptions that people make around what voice teachers need to learn, what pedagogy needs to be in order for voice teachers to be effective. So I was bringing and that has continued to this day. And one of the main things that is at issue for me, that is an issue, is that, hey, Kate, I'm not sure if you're requesting to be in the live or whether that was a boop. I'm not sure. I'm also live on 2 platforms, so I can't like bring you into one because you won't be in the other. It'll be tricky. It's so tricky. But anyway, so what happens then? Sorry, oh gosh, I just squirreled. It's good times with the squirreling. I really want to be it. Oh, not a boop. Okay. Let's do one together later, eh? Hey, Tracy, let's do one together. Okay. Where we're like, it's intentional and we actually set up a whole thing. Yeah? Because I'm on 2 platforms. It's very tricky. Generalist, the information. Yeah, let's do it. Here's the issue. Here's the issue. Here's why I call it Swimmin In It. Here's why I talk about this in the way that I do. Oh, no problem at all. I'm back. Yeah, it takes a lot more than that to fully derail me. The issue is this. When folks are delivering information or are deciding what independent, especially generalist voice teachers need and want, we're deciding, right? Often we're also just deciding this is what they want because clearly this is what they need, right? When the folks who are making the decisions about what we as generalist independent voice teachers need and want are making the decisions without being clear in their own mind about the waters that they are swimming in and how different that is from the waters that a generalist independent voice teacher is swimming in. The information will be delivered as if it is coming from an expert, which it is, absolutely, but it will be delivered as if it is coming from an expert who is swimming in the same waters that you are swimming in, who is working with the same singers, who understands the expectations around working with specific populations, who understands what it means to be a generalist, right? So because when there is no acknowledgement or understanding, sometimes it's not about whether or not we acknowledge it, sometimes it's just about I really actually didn't realize that I had this, that I was completely blind to the waters that I was swimming in, or that I completely did not catch the fact that I didn't track the fact that I am swimming, as I said in my post earlier, that I, as a specialist voice teacher, am swimming in a river. And the generalist voice teachers are over there swimming in the ocean. And when I, as an expert who does not recognize this difference, deliver information to you, to an independent voice teacher who is a generalist, that information will be through the lens of someone who is swimming in a river and may not be that useful or as useful to folks who are swimming in an ocean. And so when I'm swimming in an ocean and I'm hearing from the folks who are the experts in pedagogy, etc., who I am, I'm told, or that I believe to have, done the work, have some answers, who are going to who are going to give me some information or education that will allow for me to be a more effective voice teacher. And I am not clear, and they are not clear, about the fact that this information is not actually for swimming in oceans, it's for swimming in rivers. I, as the person who is swimming in the ocean, can be really hard on my self-esteem. It can be very hard. It can really ratchet up that imposter syndrome. It can really cause me to thank you, Kate, thank you. It can really cause me to doubt my teaching, because they are the experts and I've come to them for this information. And because I am not clear, and they are not clear on the fact that this is information that works really well for swimming in a river, and then I take it and I try to apply it to swimming in an ocean, and it doesn't work, I feel like there must be something wrong with me, right? Because we're all swimming in it, and we're all swimming. We're all in the water, we're all swimming. But because I don't see that difference, because I don't realize that that is the difference, it can be really challenging. And I know this from a personal point of view, from experience, and I know this from working with voice teachers, lots and lots of voice teachers. And so often we carry these assumptions with us about what should work and what should be right and how things are supposed to work. That are assumptions that come from folks who, or are directives, etc., that come from the folks who are swimming in a river. And we're mad at ourselves because, we're mad at ourselves because we can't apply it when we're swimming in the ocean. Tricky, eh? One major skill I've gotten so much better at in recent years, was oblivious to this dynamic for a long time, of course. Of course we're oblivious to it, right? We're all swimming in it until someone says, hey, by the way, how would you know? How would you know? Is to consider all the angles of every bit of advice and info I absorb. Right. So yes, I say that quite a bit, is to consider the source. Always we're considering the source. And we're considering the source, a couple of ways to consider the source. Let me talk about that actually, and then come back to another thing. But a couple of ways to consider the source. One thing is to say, has this teacher who I am learning from worked with, or do they continue to work with, the same kinds of singers who I work with? I mean, that is a very easy question to ask. If they are working with, I don't know if they're working with, maybe they may even be an independent voice teacher, right? So they're not necessarily associated with an academic setting. And they may be an independent voice teacher. But maybe their studio is, maybe they work exclusively with, high performance folks who are, who are on pro track. Maybe they work exclusively with pro track singers. So maybe they are working with the same age group that you're working with, but they are only working with pro track singers, right? That is different if you are working in a generalist studio. Those are two different perspectives. And it's not that they're not going to necessarily have great information or ways to support your teaching. It's not that. It's that you have to consider that source, like what Music Junkie Studio was saying. We consider that source where I say, okay, this information is I think really applicable to me. This makes sense to me. This works for me. I'm going to try some of this stuff out. I'm going to maybe not try that, or maybe I'll try it and see if it's useful. We'll see. But in the back, not in the back, but as you are working through some of this information, you're going to keep in mind that they are not the expert on the singers who you are working with, even if they're giving you information that is about adolescents, because they work exclusively with adolescents and you also work exclusively with adolescents. doesn't matter if they're working with exclusively with pro-track adolescents or folks who are working in one specific genre, and you're working with tons of different adolescents who have tons of different goals. These are two different client bases, if you will. That is still the difference between swimming in a river and swimming in an ocean. So some of the things that come up for me, that's one question, sorry. One question is, there are two questions to ask. Does this teacher work with, or have they worked with, the clients or the kinds of singers who I work with? Secondly, oh, and Tracy, that reminds me too. I don't know if you're still here or not, but Tracy, another question about this is, so does this teacher work with the same, if I remember correctly, Tracy, you're working in an academic institution. However, the academic institution, I think it's a Black college, correct? If I might be misremembering this, but it is not an institution that is geared toward creating performers, right? Not creating, but supporting performers, people who are going into performance necessarily, right? And I think, if I remember correctly, you've got lots of first-time singers or folks who are untrained. Yeah, right. So you've got lots of folks who are first time taking voice lessons, perhaps, and I'm putting untrained in big quotes here because you've got lots of great singers. Not that, it's just that they haven't had formal training, right? So that is a very different client type, even though you are working in an institution and in an academic setting. That is a very different singer who you are working with than someone who is also working in an institution in, say, a 4-year degree program or whatever it is, because the goals are very different. And also the level of skill acquisition is very different, right? And the level of expectations around the learning is very different. We're also, so we're also working with folks, if I remember correctly, yes, in Western classical performance, exactly. So even though I'm looking to say someone who is also in an academic institution who is teaching, who looks like they're teaching a similar student, when I really actually look at the students, I think, oh gosh, actually, that teacher actually doesn't understand or doesn't have the experience perhaps to give me really great support and information and continuing education that is going to support the kind of teaching I am doing and the kind of work that I'm doing with the singers who I'm working with, even though we may be working with the same age and in an academic institution, right? An institution. So that's the first question. Are they working with the same singer type / goals, et cetera, et cetera? The second question is this: do they acknowledge the difference? Are they saying it out loud? Have I heard this person say, I don't work with XYZ population, and so my experience is with XYZ population? Do they just say that out loud? If they're not saying that out loud, and yet they are expecting a generalist voice teacher to get lots of good information from them, take it with a grain of salt. That's all I'm saying. Be critical. You're allowed to be critical about the information and about the source, right? So consider the source. Are they working with the same population that I'm working with? And if they are not, which is fine, they're allowed to not work with a different population, and you're allowed to get information, right? I would love that folks would say, I don't work with XYZ population, so I'm actually probably not in the best position to speak on this, and or I may be giving you information that is through this because I'm used to swimming in a river, and I understand you're used to swimming in an ocean, and so some of my information may actually not be great for you. Take it with a grain of salt kind of thing. If they're not saying that explicitly, gotta figure that out, right? Okay. Some of the things that happen. And so one of the things that happens all the time. Okay, well, it's just anatomy, Shannon. When I'm teaching anatomy, I don't have this like swimming in a river lens because I'm just teaching. It's just anatomy. It doesn't change from singer to singer. Like everybody's anatomy and physiology is the same, so that doesn't change. So, so I can teach. Anybody gets the information. No, no, my friend. No, my friend. This is the no. Raise his eyebrow. No. Because here's what happens when I teach, when I am unaware of, I will call this a bias, but when I am unaware of a bias, or when I am just not aware that I'm swimming in a river and I'm trying to work with folks who are swimming in an ocean, I'm going to teach anatomy and physiology from a perspective of what is right, what is the best way for the physiology to work. I'm going to say something as a balanced onset that probably doesn't apply to 95% of the singers who I'm working with in an independent generalist voice studio. Balanced onset, there is a large range of what a balanced onset can be. And if I am only working in the river, if I am only in a river, if I'm only working with a specific population of singers, I am going to think, and I shouldn't say I am going to, I'm going to say my experience has been that folks who are only working in a river are going to, 100% Liz. My experience has been that folks who are only working in a river are going to say, this is the healthiest way to sing. This is the healthiest way to use your anatomy and physiology. This is what a balanced onset should be. Here's how you should be breathing and using your instrument. Here's how you should, yes. Prescriptive attitudes about health. Exactly. So, or what it means to sing in a healthy manner, what healthy singing sounds like, etc. Right? That is going to creep into your teaching of anatomy and physiology. Every time someone says, well, I teach style agnostic anatomy and physiology, and I say, but you've only worked with one kind of singer in your whole life. I'm pretty sure it's not style agnostic. And health is a measure of artistic value. Yes. Is that really style agnostic? Anatomy, pedagogy is political, my friends. Pedagogy is political. It doesn't matter whether you're teaching just anatomy and physiology and you're just given the straight facts. The straight facts will always be colored by your experience, your beliefs, etc., etc. Pedagogy is political. It will always be colored. The way I deliver that information will always be colored by that, by what I have, will always be through that lens. So, pedagogy is political, right? So, what happens when I, as an independent voice teacher, generalist, I learn from someone, and I have taken many, I've done several, participated in several, pedagogy kind of conferences, symposia, blah, 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 where I am learning from other voice teachers and where I am there saying I would love to get some more perspectives on anatomy and physiology, on how we're teaching this, what the newest stuff is. I've participated in lots of stuff like that. And pedagogy is political. It is always colored by my experience, who I've worked with. Absolutely. Right. I am called a biological voice teacher by a music theater singer with PCOS. Yes, her body cannot work the way it should. Absolutely, Kate. Absolutely. Right. And yes, so many shoulds come in and we get so let's say, for example, you are a generalist and you are swimming out there in the ocean and you listen to a specialist voice teacher who never addresses the fact that if you swim in the ocean for a long time, your skin gets salty and dry and cakey, and you should maybe take a shower. Why do they never address it? And why do I, at the end of the day, feel like, oh, my skin is terrible, but no one ever, I don't know, what am I must not be a good teacher because all of those people seem to never have to take a shower after they teach. I'm really mixing the metaphors now. You're very welcome for this. But you can see what I mean. They never seem to have to take a shower after they teach. They never talk about it. They never seem to they never seem to wash their skin off. They never seem to like, maybe they put on some moisturizer, but they don't seem to have to like get that salty. Why don't they have a salty, grimy layer on their skin? That's not fair. I must be doing it wrong because I have this extra salt deposit on my skin. I must be doing it wrong. No, you swim in a different body of water. They never seem to have to wear a wetsuit when they swim. That's why. I must be doing it wrong. I'm always cold when I'm swimming and I have to wear a wetsuit. I must be doing it wrong. You see how I'm comparing myself to like someone and it's just like, it's not useful, right? It's not useful. I can never seem to get my music theater singers or my belters or my gospel belters to be able to, not mine, but the singers I work with who sing these styles, I can never seem to get them to have a balanced onset. So, why? I'm working so hard for them to have a balanced onset. It never seems to work. And then when they do get that balanced onset, they lose their belt. Yeah, that's because that balanced onset that specialist teacher told you was the right balanced onset is only useful for Western classical singing or maybe like some pop styles. Like it's not useful if you're trying to do a high belt. That's that balanced onset. You have to change your definition of balanced in order to be able to do the sounds you want to do, right? Okay. I think I might like to get into the water now. I'd like to maybe go swimming in the lake. Different body of water altogether. Some of us are swimming in lakes. Or let me just say one other thing. So, that balanced onset, I can never get my changing voice adolescents to use that balanced onset. It never seems to be able to work. I can never get the 6-year-olds I'm working with to have the right kind of inhalation where the body opens up and the ribs swing out. I can never get them to do that. Hey, guess what? Yes. Guess what? 6-year-olds' bodies aren't in barrel shape yet. 6-year-olds are in little triangle shapes. The ribs don't actually have a lot of movement available to them yet. That's why you can't get them to do the breath that you have been taught is the right kind of breath. Every time you listen to someone who does not understand that they are swimming in a river and you are swimming in an ocean, and they tell you the right way to do something or how something is supposed to happen or how we must blend registers or how we must do XYZ. And then you come home and you're like to your home studio and like, it's so hard to get the 6-year-old to do this swing out breath that I know they're supposed to do, or to do a silent inhalation. I can never get the 8-year-olds to do a silent inhalation. Yeah, you know why? Because they have extra mucus that is not settled yet in their bodies. That's why. They're not supposed to do that yet. But if you only listened to the specialist, you would think to yourself, I must be doing it wrong because I can't get the 6-year-old's body to do this on inhalation, and I can't get the 8-year-old to breathe in silently. I mean, some of them you can, but, right? You're not doing it wrong. Come back to Liz was saying to come back, take a step back to evaluate why this directive or technical skill is important to that student and in which context, right? So true. So true. Come back to that. And again, consider the source. If you've never done any pedagogy training, great, whatever. I don't care. Do what you got to do, boo. You do you. If you've never done any pedagogy training and you have done, you've done an undergrad degree, for example, or you've worked with a voice teacher who did lots of training, who is coming from a Western classical background. these things are going to be inherent, right? These things, this understanding of like all of the things that are the way that we should be doing things, or what the right expectations are around how singers' voices work, etc. Those things are going to be like in your brain. They're going to be there from the teacher you worked with. That's just the way we work, right? And so even if you haven't done training with a specialist voice teacher, or you haven't done any kind of sort of that kind of pedagogy training, these things are in our brains anyway, right? It's inherited. We take it on as part of, we think to ourselves, well, we're all swimming in the same waters. So everything that my teacher told me about what was the right way to sing, how breathing should look, what belting should feel like, blah, 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 all that stuff, clearly, that's the way I should be working with all of the singers I'm working with. When in fact, it's possible that you have a river brain, a swimming in a river brain, and you're actually swimming in an ocean. It's tricky. All right. Also, you know, that those teachers seem to be able to get to the shore really easily. Those teachers seem to be able to always find the shore. They always seem to be able to get to they always seem to be able to touch bottom. Yeah, you know why? Because they're swimming in a river. They can see the shoreline. It's right there. You can just get over to it. You're swimming in an ocean? You have a lot more options. Also, they're working with very similar singers who are at very similar stages of development, who are coming into the studio with a very similar, technique, coordination, acquisition of coordination. So we've got these singers. I'm learning from a specialist who thinks that all of the solutions, that all of the exercises, all of the solutions are really easy, and is communicating to me that this is really straightforward, and all you have to do is this, 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 and this. And now I'm in my generalist, I'm swimming in the ocean, and I'm like, but how come you were able to touch bottom so quickly? It's really deep where I am. I'm not sure I can touch bottom. And then I feel bad about my teaching because I can't touch bottom, or I can't get to the shore as easily. All right. I've dragged this metaphor on long enough. You're welcome. Consider who you get your pedagogy from, okay? Who you learn about teaching from. And then if you are a generalist in particular, or if you are someone who works with voice teachers, or someone who has, if you are a singer who has a teacher who, teaches pedagogy, you might consider doing the Evolving Voice live lecture series, which starts, as I said, on Wednesday. Yes, 3 Wednesdays in a row. Child voice, adolescent voice, and aging voice. We will talk anatomy and physiology. Absolutely. And the way we will talk about it is not in this is what should happen, here's what to expect, but in a here's what the anatomy and physiology is doing at this age and stage of growth, and here are what the appropriate expectations may be, and here's how to move and support these singers as they move through these growth stages dependent on their goals. That's how we talk, as well as developing agency. Oh gosh, I'm thinking of a whole bunch of other things that I wish I had said, but that's fine. It's good. It's good. We'll leave it for another live office hours. Hope to see you on Wednesday. Hope you're having a great week. I hope your weekend is fabulous. And see ya. This is also like a little bathing suit cover that I bought. May or may not have a bathing suit on. It's fine. Okay, bye. Have a great weekend. Reach out. Let me know. Okay, I can't. I'm going to add one other thing. When I'm working one-on-one with voice teachers, this is, and which I do offer, by the way, feel free to reach out if that's something you're interested in, and also when we're working in the voice pedagogy degree, a lot of the work that we do is around exactly what I've been talking about. Recognizing what waters I'm swimming in currently versus the waters I thought I was swimming in, versus the waters that the people who I have learned from are swimming in, and what they have communicated about teaching, about pedagogy, about anatomy and physiology, appropriate expectations, etc. What they have taught me about those things, and just sort of unpacking those things, making those things real, or explicit, making those things explicit, understanding how the belief that I'm swimming in a river when I'm actually swimming in an ocean, how that has impacted my teaching so far, and how to start to move into teaching that is based on the fact that I know I'm actually swimming in an ocean versus swimming in a river. How to self-assess these teaching, the things that come up in me, right, as I'm teaching. How to self-assess, how to understand, oh, wait, that may not actually be something that is useful to me anymore, or for this singer in particular. That is the vast majority of the work we do. Most folks who come to me for understanding of anatomy and physiology actually already have all of the anatomy and physiology that they need. They actually need to unpack what they believe about anatomy and physiology, about teaching and about singing, has impacted the information that they actually already have, or how they use that information. All right. That got deep. Have a great weekend. See ya.